Hello, today we're going to learn how to solve multi-step equations. Alright, to solve multi-step equations, we have a mnemonic device to help you remember the steps on how to solve these equations. So the mnemonic device is don't call me after midnight. And we'll talk about what this means. A multi-step equation is something like this. It's a big, long equation. It's got an equal sign in the middle, right? It might have parentheses, and it might have more than one variable, things like that. But if you follow these steps, don't call me after midnight, you will correctly solve the equation each time. All right, so what is don't call me after midnight? So don't call me after midnight, the first letter will tell you what to do. So don't starts with D, so your first step would be distribute. Call starts with C, so you combine like terms. Me starts with M, so let's move the variable to one side. After starts with A, so you add or subtract. And then midnight starts with M, so you multiply or divide. So don't call me after midnight. All right, let's do an example and see what it means. All right, so don't call me after midnight. Don't distribute. So distribute, it says if you have parentheses, you get rid of them by using the distributive property. So we know how to do the distributive property. We take the number on the outside of a parentheses and we multiply it by the numbers that are inside the parentheses, right? So if I had 2 times x, that would be 2x. And then I would do 2 times negative 5, because that sign in front of that 5 is a minus, so that means negative. So 2 times a negative 5 would be negative 10. And then I don't have any other parentheses, so then I would just bring everything else down. So don't call me after midnight, the don't stands for distribute, and that's how we get rid of parentheses. All right, don't call me after midnight. Call starts with C, combine like terms. Combine like terms on each side of the equal sign. So what I'm going to do is draw a line down the middle of my equal sign, and then I'm going to combine like terms on each side. So I look to the left of my equal sign, and I say, is there anything over here I can combine? And I see that I have a 2x here, and I have a plus x here. Since they're both x's, I can combine them. So 2x plus 1x will give me 3x. This minus 10 I can't combine with anything, so I just bring it down. So now I'm going to look to the other side of my equal sign and say, can I combine anything over here? Well, I see I have a 2 and I have a plus 4. Those are just numbers, so I can combine those. This 5x I can't combine with anything, so I'm just going to bring the 5x down, but I can combine my numbers. 2 plus 4 is 6, so I would write plus 6. So call, combine like terms. You combine like terms on each side of the equal sign. You combine everything on the left first, and then combine everything on the right. All right, don't call me after midnight. Me starts with M. Move a variable to one side. So move one of the variables over to the other side of the equal sign by using the opposite operation. So therefore, if it's positive, you're going to do a minus or negative to get rid of it and move it over. If it's a negative, you're going to do a positive or a plus to move it over. So it doesn't matter which variable you move over, as long as you do the opposite operation to get it to the other side. I like to move everything over to the left. It just it works for me. So I'm going to get rid of this 5x on this side. So I see that's a positive 5x, so I'm going to do minus 5x. And when I do minus 5x, that's going to cancel it out on this side. And remember, equations are always equal, they're balanced. So I have to do the same thing to the other side. And 3x minus 5x is negative 2x. And then I can bring everything else down. I can bring down my minus 10, and on this side I'm left with a plus 6 or a positive 6. So I can bring down the 6. And that's me, M, move a variable to one side. All right, don't call me after midnight. After starts with A. A, add or subtract. Get rid of the constant or the number with no variable by either adding or subtracting. So I want to get that variable by itself, remember? So I want to get rid of the number that doesn't have the variable first. So I see here this is a minus 10, so I'm going to do the opposite to get rid of it. So I'm going to do a plus 10 to get rid of it on this side and just leave me with this negative 2x. But remember, whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. So I'm also going to have to do plus 10 on my other side of my equation. 6 plus 10 is 16. So the after, and don't call me after midnight, means add or subtract. All right, midnight. Don't call me after midnight. Starts with M. Multiply or divide. Get rid of the coefficient or the number attached to the variable by either multiplying or dividing. So I see here that I have negative 2x, and I know a number next to a letter means multiply. So I have to divide to get rid of it. So I'm going to divide by negative 2 to get rid of that and leave me with just x. And whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. So I'm going to do 16 divided by negative 2. And 16 divided by negative 2 is negative 8. And then now, that's my final answer. I got that x all by itself. So if you look up to our original starting equation, way up here, 2 times the difference of x and 5 plus x equals 2 plus 5x plus 4. We followed the don't call me after midnight steps, and we got x equals negative 8. So don't call me after midnight is a good mnemonic device to help you remember the steps in solving multi-step equations. Let's do another practice one. All right, one thing I do when I solve multi-step equations is I write don't call me after midnight on the left side of my paper to help remember what I have to do. So I know don't, D, means distribute. So do I have parentheses? I do, so I have to distribute. So I'm going to take the number on the outside and times it by everything on the inside, right? So 2 times 3 is 6, and it has an x next to it, so that stays with it. And then 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. I also have parentheses on this side, so I have to do this, distribute this 4 to get rid of the parentheses. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times x is 4x. And it's a positive 4x, so I put plus 4x. And now I'm done with don't, or distribute. All right, my next step, don't call me after midnight. Call, combine like terms. So I can draw a line down the middle. Can I combine anything over here on my left side? I cannot, so I'm done. Can I combine anything on my right side? I cannot, so I'm done. So I'm done with C. So now I can move to the next part. Don't call me, M. And that means move variable over. I think I told you guys earlier, I like to move over everything to the left. So I see that this is a positive 4x or a plus 4x. So to move it over, I know I have to do the opposite. So I'm going to do minus 4x to get rid of it on this side. And to keep it equal, I have to do the same thing to the other side. And 6x minus 4x gives me 2x. And then I can bring everything else down. And now I'm done with moving my variables over. So I can go on to my next step. My next step is after, or A, which means add or subtract. And I know I want to get this x by itself, so I have to add or subtract the number that doesn't have a variable. So this is minus 2, so I'm going to do plus 2. And I have to do it to both sides. I do plus 2 because this cancels out to leave me with 2x. And then I have to do the same thing to the other side, so 4 plus 2 is 6. So now I'm done with adding or subtracting, or after. All right, don't call me after midnight. M means multiply or divide. So I know a number next to a letter means multiply. So in this case, I have to do the opposite, which would be divide. I'm going to divide by 2 to get rid of that 2 in front of the x. And that's going to leave me with x on my left side. But I have to do the same thing to the other side to keep it equal. So 6 divided by 2 will give me 3. And then this is my final answer. So I had this big, long, confusing equation, but if I follow don't call me after midnight, I can do the steps and get my correct answer. All right, let's try this next one. First, I'm going to write down the side. Don't call me after midnight. So I can remember my steps on what to do. So I know don't, the D is distribute. So I'm going to do distribute first. Do I have any parentheses? I do, right here. I have a negative parentheses. What does that mean? When there's no number in front of the parentheses, but there's a negative. Whenever there's no number, but there's a negative, there's really a little secret negative 1 there. It's a little sneaky. And we got to take that negative 1 and we have to distribute it to everything on the inside of those parentheses to get rid of it. So negative 1 times x is negative 1x. Negative 1 times negative 20. A negative times a negative gives you a positive. So that'd be positive 20. And now my parentheses are gone, and I can bring down everything else. There's no parentheses on my left side, so I can just bring down everything else on my left side. And then I can continue on to my next step. All right, my next step, call, C, combine like terms. So I'm going to build my wall and combine everything on the left side first. Is there anything I can combine over here? Well, I see I have a 7x and a minus 3x. Since they're both x's, I can combine those. 7x minus 3x will give me 4x. And I can't combine that 5 with anything, so I'm just going to bring down the 5. Now I'm going to look to the right side of my equal sign. Can I combine anything over here? Well, I see I have a 20 and I have a plus 5. Those are just numbers, so I can combine those two. 20 plus 5 is 25. And it's positive, so I'm going to put a plus in front. This negative 1x I can't combine with anything, so I'm just going to bring that down. So now I'm done with my call or my combine like terms on each side. All right, my next step, move. Don't call me, move. So I'm going to move over one of my variables. So I'm going to move over the one on the right and move it to the left. So I see this is a negative 1x. So to move it over, I have to do the opposite. So I'm going to do plus 1x to get rid of it on this side. I'm going to do the same thing over here. 4x plus 1x is 5x. And then I can bring down everything else. I can bring down my plus 5. And on this side, I'm still left with 25. The 1x is canceled out. I'm left over with that 25, so I just bring it down. And now I'm done with moving my variables. All right, my next step. Don't call me after, add, or subtract. I want to get rid of the number that doesn't have a variable first. So I see that there's a plus 5. I have to do the opposite. I got to do minus 5. And I know 25 minus 5 is 20. And the reason I did minus is to cancel this out on this side. And that leaves me with 5x on my left side. So now I have 5x equals 20. And I'm done with my adding or subtracting. And my last step, don't call me after midnight, is either multiply or divide. So I see a number next to a letter, so that means multiply. So I got to do the opposite to get rid of it. I'm going to divide by 5 to cancel that out. And that will leave me with x. I got to do the same thing to the other side to keep it equal. 20 divided by 5 is 4. So my final answer for this equation is x equals 4. So don't call me after midnight. If you follow these steps, you'll get the right answer no matter what the equation is. I mean, look at the equation we started with. It's a big, long equation. It looks hard, right? But we just showed you all the steps. And if you follow them correctly and do don't call me after midnight, you'll get a final answer and it will be correct. All right, let's try another one. I have this equation here, so don't call me after midnight. My first step, distribute, don't. I don't have any parentheses, so I'm done with that step. And now I can combine my like terms. I don't have anything on my left side to combine. I don't have anything on my right side to combine, so I'm done with that step. So now I move my variables over. So I'm going to move over this one on the right and move it over to the left. So I see it's a negative 2, so I'm going to do plus 2n to move it over. And that cancels it out on my right side, and 3n plus 2n gives me 5n. And then I can bring everything else down. So I'm done with that step. My next step, add. So add or subtract. So I see I have a plus 2 there, so I'm going to do minus 2 to cancel that out. I'm going to have to do the same thing to the other side. Negative 8 minus 2 is negative 10, and on my left side, that leaves me with 5n. And I'm done with that step. My last step, multiply or divide. I see I have 5n, so I'm going to have to divide by 5 to get rid of that 5 and leave me with n. I can do the same thing to the other side. Negative 10 divided by 5 will give me negative 2. And my final answer is n equals negative 2. So don't call me after midnight, once again, got me this answer to solve this equation. Pause the video and try this one on the right on your own. Unpause it when you're done and see if you got it right. All right, hopefully you followed Don't Call Me After Midnight on this equation, and this is kind of the work for it. And you got the answer of n equals negative 8.5 as a final answer. All right, so don't call me after midnight. Distribute, combine like terms, move over the variable, add or subtract, multiply or divide. Follow those steps. You'll get the right answer every single time. If you need help, ask a question. See you later.